What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you are enjoying one of the best parts of the sports calendar year. That's right. Today is Tuesday, April the 1st, 2025. A very happy April Fool's Day to you and yours. And I know that it's not football season. There's a lot going on, though, in the world of football and in the world of the NFL and in the world of the Dallas Cowboys that we're going to get to. But we've got the Final Four this weekend in one of the best cities in America, in San Antonio, where I lived for about 10 years. We've got the Valero Texas Open also taking place in the Countdown City. And then next week, we've got the Masters. We've obviously got the NBA playoffs coming up. We've got the NHL playoffs coming up. We've got baseball starting up. It is truly amazing. This is the time of year where you're getting notifications left and right from the Bleacher Report app, the very best app in the world of sports. Make sure you download it. You can watch shows like this. Obviously, keep track of your favorite teams. You can follow me in the Bleacher Report app right down below, or obviously you can follow me on any level of social media. X, Instagram, Threads at RJ Ochoa, Blue Sky, search for RJ Ochoa, TikTok, RJ.Ochoa, RJ.Ochoa at SBNation.com is also how you email me. While you can watch these shows live and on demand in the Bleacher Report app, you can also watch them after the fact on demand on the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. So make sure you head on over there. If you're already there, like the video, subscribe. It's a big week on the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. Today, the day I'm putting this together, the day I'm streaming this, the day the video is going up, is Tuesday. Earlier on Tuesday, we had a live show with myself and Brandon Gouton, my pal from Bleeding Green Nation. It was a spontaneous, somewhat delayed emergency episode of the NFC East mixtape. So we caught up on all things within the NFL's greatest and most storied division on Wednesday on the Blog and the Boys YouTube channel. Fantastic interview that I conducted with CBS Sports' Tracy Wolfson. Obviously, Tracy will be running things around the Final Four and be at the Masters. And of course, soon enough, be on the sidelines back at NFL and Dallas Cowboys games. And then next week, no, not next week, 2 weeks from now, we have a very special interview dropping on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. I'm not going to say anything specific, but I will promise you that you know who they are and what they did last year, and you likely want them on the Dallas Cowboys. That's all I'm saying. That's 2 weeks from now. We'll get there when we get there. But today, Tuesday, April the 1st, 2025, was a day for the Dallas Cowboys. And this is kind of the way the offseason goes. You know, it's kind of chill. And then something like the NFL owners meetings happens and it's like, boom, 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 boom. We just get like headline. And that's kind of what happened this week. Now, the NFL owners are or have been in Florida, where the Gators are getting ready for the Final Four. See, it all works together. But NFL owners have been getting together, bragging about their yachts and their planes and their private jets, if they're going to the Japanese Grand Prix this weekend, stuff like that. And of course, voting on NFL rules because they're the most impactful people when it comes to making decisions relative to the NFL. Thankfully, my personal opinion, they have not chosen yet, at least, to do anything about the tush push. I think that's pretty cowardly. I don't like the Eagles. In fact, I really hate the Eagles, but just beat them. Just beat the Eagles. Beat them at their own game. Quit trying to, use the rule book or create rules to use the rule book. But I digress. They did. I can't believe this is a real thing. The NFL owners approved now touchbacks to start at your own 35-yard line. This is fantastic news. I wrote about this on Tuesday at blogontheboys.com. I wrote a lot of things. I was very busy. But this is great news for Kevontae Turpin for the Dallas Cowboys. Kevontae Turpin had career highs last year, and not only kickoff return attempts, but obviously his average yards per kickoff return. And it would stand to reason that teams are not going to want to give the Cowboys the ball at their own 35-yard line. And so they're going to give Kevontae Turpin opportunities to return these kickoffs. So that is very, very, very good news. And Tuesday kind of started off good and positive in that sense for the Cowboys from a timeline perspective. On Tuesday morning, Cowboys new head coach Brian Schottenheimer met with everybody at the coach's breakfast, said the right things, talked a lot about what the team wants with the 12th overall pick. He said that, hey, we want to, obviously take the best play available. And he had a nice little spiel about building from outside to in. He talked about looking at your corners and your receivers and all these sorts of things. I think, general NFL philosophy is you build inside out, you build within the trenches, and obviously you move outwardly. And so, look, anytime, I know that we all were really upset and maybe on some level still are and are just coping now, but ultimately, anytime that Brian Schottenheimer speaks, I think he kind of improves his stock, his net worth in this sense relative to Dallas Cowboys fandom improves, right? I promise you, whoever you are, wherever you are, and however you are, you think more highly of Brian Schottenheimer today on Tuesday, April the 1st, than you did when the team first hired him. That late Friday night when they buried the news because they were so ashamed. It might be because we were so down bad that the fact that we're now just at like rock bottom is an elevated surface relative to the magma core that we were orbiting at that particular point in time. But I guarantee you that you feel better about Brian Schottenheimer at this point than you did at this time, call it about not quite 60 days ago. I guess it was about 60 days ago, but you get my overall point. So good for Brian Schottenheimer. Now, actually, before we fully leave the Brian Schottenheimer thing, there's a tweet that I wanted to show you, and then we have something to really show you here. But on the idea that Brian Schottenheimer is impressing or is having an influence, whatever. What you're looking at right now is a tweet from Nick Harris of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. We're actually going to look at this tweet first from NFL Network's Jane Slater, friend of the show, friend of Blog of the Boys, friend of mine. Jane tweeted out on Tuesday, "I'm actually really glad Cowboys Nation finally getting to hear a little more from Shotty this week. When everyone asks me about him, I just say give him time. He might impress you. For me," this is Jane's opinion here, "very authentic, passionate about the game and relationships. Is that win column stuff? I don't know yet, but it starts with character and leadership style. And I've seen that so far from him and the way players talk about him." Great, check mark, love this. And I think that Jane is being extremely authentic in this point. I don't think this is any fluff. I don't think this is any whatever. I think this is truly just her perception of Brian Schottenheimer. So back to the tweet we were looking at a moment ago, Nick Harris of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram quoting Jane and saying, to add on to what Jane says here about Cowboys head coach Brian Schottenheimer, the relationships aspect of his approach is not just for show. He's truly about it. A couple of weeks back, he bought Whataburger breakfast for every single Cowboys employee in the building and spent time getting to know various departments such as accounting, marketing, etc. Whether those little things are minimal in the win column or not, kind of again piggybacking off of the point that Jane was raising, it shows that Shotty walks the walk with everything that he says. Now, I agree with Nick and I agree with Jane, and these things are good. And I think, again, any opportunity that Brian Schottenheimer has had to speak at this point outside of his introductory press conference, because that involves Stephen Jones's air quote fiasco. But when Shotty spoke at the NFL Combine, when Shotty spoke on Tuesday morning, everything is about ball with this dude. It is all good. It is all positive. And so if we are being fair and trying to give him a fair shake at doing this and ignoring how upset we were about the process that led to him, that he had nothing to do with, it's not Brian Schottenheimer's fault. None of this is his fault. One of the best things that Mike McCarthy ever said, in my opinion, came after the wild card loss of the Packers now, whatever it was, 15 months ago. And he was asked about the shadow that this team is living in and fighting against and all the, kind of things that have gone into the drought, so to speak. And Mike McCarthy, I always thought Mike McCarthy was pretty bold in his convictions. He said, look, we take full responsibility for what we have been a part of here together as a team, but we take zero responsibility for what befell us. We take zero responsibility, these are my words, not his, for the Jason Garrett era, for the Wade Phillips era, for the Bill Parcells era. As promising as some of those things were, as productive as some of those things were, I'm not trying to say that Bill Parcells was terrible or whatever, but you get my point that none of those coaches got this thing across the proverbial goal line. And so I give Mike McCarthy credit for doing something in his era that nobody had ever done in terms of even just going to the playoffs in back-to-back years. And so if we're going to kind of wipe the slate clean for Brian Schottenheimer, I think that we should. I think that we should wipe the slate clean and give him an opportunity to impress. And these things may just be things, right? Again, to use the parlance and the verbiage that Jane and Nick did, do they lead to wins? I don't know. And in fact, if I had to bet, I would say no. But they are cool and they are, commendable and respectful. And so good for Brian Schottenheimer. And so, like I said, the vibes were pretty high or somewhat legit on Tuesday with Brian Schottenheimer coming off of speaking. And he was asked about the kind of hot topic, hot button issues relative to the team at this moment. I wrote about all these things, obviously, at blogontheboys.com. I touched on the fact, obviously, already here today about what the team was going to do with the 12th overall pick, building outside to in, et cetera. And Brian Schottenheimer was even asked about Micah Parsons, my fellow Bleacher Report content creator. Micah Parsons, the president. He said, look, I fully expect Micah Parsons to be around for offseason stuff. He knows leadership, all the kind of words and things you want to hear. For what it's worth, the Cowboys do begin offseason voluntary work next week. They are allowed to begin next week because Brian Schottenheimer is a first-year head coach. In case you don't remember that, NFL teams who have coaches operating, or excuse me, who are operating with first-year head coaches, program changes, again, however you want to put it, they're allowed to begin a little bit earlier. That was supposed to happen with Mike McCarthy, but that was in 2020, and obviously everything was extraordinarily difficult. So we will see next week when Masters Week hits if Micah Parsons is there or not. That is gonna, we're gonna reach a fork in the road, and I don't mean to put that much pressure on Micah. I don't think it's fair, and this isn't a shot against Brian Schottenheimer or anybody for that matter. I don't think it's fair to say that Micah Parsons is only a leader if he shows up for the voluntary workouts. I think that it is certainly reflective of some type of leadership, but I don't think it's fair to put that on him. I don't think that CeeDee Lamb is less of a leader because he wasn't there last year. I think that if a player decides not to show up, if they decide to hold out, that is simply what they believe is in their best interest. And I am always team player. Get your bag. Your opportunities are fleeting in this life, in this game. So you should certainly capitalize on the moment. You should strike while the iron is hot. I hold no ill will to any player who wants to hold out. And maybe Micah doesn't want to hold out. Maybe Micah didn't want to hold out. But I would imagine that what happened after Brian Schottenheimer spoke on Tuesday is not going to help the idea that Micah Parsons is going to show up and sing Kumbaya. So let's put this on your screen. Actually, before we put this on your screen, before April 1st, in the months mostly of January, because obviously there were still games from last season in January, but for the most part, you get my point. Throughout from this off or okay, I think we're still here. That was crazy. That happened last time. I wasn't here last Thursday, by the way. I was at opening day for the Astros, got the win. It was really nice. So I don't know what happened there, but I think that we're okay. So, all right. All of this offseason before Tuesday was pretty good. I will say. I mean, the Cowboys, it was the classic office, days since our last incident meme, right? Like we were kind of like at 60, you know what I mean? We were higher than we had been in a very, very, very long time. And the reason for that, in my humble opinion, is because Jerry Jones hadn't spoken. In fact, Jerry Jones only spoke one time on the record since this season, or last season, excuse me, ended. Last season ended. The Cowboys played in Washington. Washington went to the NFC Championship game. The Eagles won the Super Bowl, blah, 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 blah. And we hadn't heard from Jerry Jones. In fact, we've only really heard from Stephen Jones. Stephen Jones has been the one kind of, carrying the company water at this point in time. And I don't fault Stephen for that, right? They got a job to do and they've got, objectives and motives and things like that. I don't think Stephen had done anything truly egregious after the air quote line. I think that Stephen and the Cowboys had done a lot of work in the front office and were kind of letting their actions speak louder than their words. Good for them. In fact, one of the only people who we had really heard from on a consistent basis was Brian Schottenheimer. He was the only person outside of Stephen Jones who had any public comments at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis a month ago, or a month and change ago. Jerry Jones did not speak at the NFL Combine. We talked about that here on this show. We talked about that a lot. I talked about that a lot on social media, and I wrote an article about how strange it was that Jerry Jones hadn't spoken. And a lot of us, you can't help but wonder. Nobody is gullible here, but I think we all thought, are they really kind of changing a little bit here? I don't think any of us truly believe that, but, we just kind of said it out loud. And so Jerry Jones on Tuesday, fittingly on April Fool's Day, said, I got this. All right, you think I've been, sitting here and I'm just going to show up and be cool and talk about how we signed Osa Digizua to a new deal and got Kevontae Turpin taken care of and how we traded for Kyer Elam? No, Miss Lippy. All right, I'm here to talk about what I want to talk about. So obviously the Micah Parsons situation is the largest one relative to the Cowboys at this point in time. Jerry Jones was asked about this. This is the tweet in question that had the video that we unfortunately are going to have to hear sound bites from for the rest of this week. And honestly, probably until Micah Parsons' extension is done, presuming it does get done. So this is from John Machota, friend of the show, friend of mine from The Athletic. Machota's tweet says here, Jerry Jones says he doesn't worry about agents in contract talks. He's been having conversations directly with Micah Parsons about his next deal. He said Micah is one of a very few people who have his cell phone number. Okay, that's fine. I have zero issue with this. I think it's a little not productive, but if Jerry and Micah are having talks, they're, playing, I don't know, college football, right? They're just chilling, they're whatevering, together, and they're saying, I think the deal should be this, I think the deal should be that. That's fine. That's great. You want to have those talks, player to owner, player to GM, Cool. I got zero issue with the fact that Jerry is having one-on-one conversations with Micah. It's the second half of this quote that is pretty stupid. All right. Let's zoom in on the quote so you can say this. I went ahead and transcribed this. So this is the exact quote in the video in question. You're not missing out on learning what he said. Are you kidding me? These are Jerry Jones's words in the video that John Machota tweeted out on Tuesday. That's just not something that you should worry about. You should be worrying about your ability to make it work, and you should be worried about what the player does. Does he have good enough health? Does he have enough skill to do what you're paying him the money for? This is fair. I got zero issue with this quote to this point in time. This is where the wheels fall off. The agent is not a factor here. Already wrong. Or something to worry about. And I don't know his name. This is an exact quote from Jerry Jones. The agent is not a factor here or something to worry about. And I don't know his name. We'll come back, but let's keep reading the quote because obviously you can see it's kind of long. And so my point is that I'm not trying to demean him in any way, but this isn't about an agent. The agent doesn't have one thing to do with what we're doing when we get on the football field against the team. This next part is kind of wild. Micah does. This is the part. To the degree I'm involved, I do. The people that have something to do with what we do going forward relative to our fans in football are me and the player, not the agent. I'm not demeaning the agent. This is the second time he's told us that he's not demeaning the agent, by the way. I'm just saying anybody can do this, and that's talk directly to a player. Again, we got no issue, Jerry, that you're talking to Mike. Frankly, most people that negotiate with me will tell you that they were better off negotiating with. Yeah, we know because they get a lot of money. That is not uncommon. Visiting directly with as far back as Emmett, Dion. We, by the way, maintained relationships that lasted well after their playing days. Okay, so to address the last part of this first, I don't mean to just kind of jump across in the order here. Yeah, you maintained relationships with Emmitt Smith and Deion Sanders because they're two of the best players in NFL history who played for your team, and you guys won Super Bowls together, and they're in the Hall of Fame, and obviously they've had careers that have had them partake in lots of things in the DFW area, right? Like we could go on and on and on and on. They're very famous. They've been in the media. Like I wouldn't brag about it. I wouldn't say that Emmett and Dion are only around post their careers because of the wonderful working relationship you had with them when you negotiated deals with them. And in fact, if you're trying to use these two players as examples, Emmitt Smith very, very famously held out and very, very famously won in his holdout with you in 1993. Deion Sanders very famously got $1 billion for you, relatively speaking, obviously, in 1995. Like, these are not good examples of like, you see how we did this? I won those deals. No, if you're looking at the Cowboys won the Super Bowls, in question with these players involved. So it was a win for everybody ultimately. But if we're talking about winning the deal, the Cowboys lost these deals in the same way that they lose deals these days. But back to the point here. It's hilarious that Jerry is saying, oh, the agent whose name I don't know, he's not involved. I'm involved. I'm really involved. Micah and me, we're equally involved in the success of this football team here. And I'm not saying that Jerry Jones has zero involvement. That's not the point that I'm making. But the idea that David Mulugheta, whose name everybody knows, including Jerry Jones, isn't involved, but that you're involved, is absurd. It sounds pretty, honestly, pretty insecure, right? Like this sounds pretty insecure. Like he doesn't do anything. The agent, no. I do everything. And Micah, he does the things that I don't do. So we're in this together, High School Musical style. David Mulugheta, he's not in anything, but David Mulugheta, we've said his name 3 times now because we know his name. You know his name. You wouldn't be here if you didn't know his name. You wouldn't be this deeply involved or researched or experienced in your NFL Dallas Cowboys fandom if you did not know David Mulugheta's name, because he represents all the biggest and best players in the NFL. I loved the way that David Hellman, Fox Sports, another friend of the show, another friend of mine, formerly of DallasCowboys.com, his tweet is condensed here, but let's just put it up on your screen. It did not open up. I don't know why, but for the most part is Dave's tweet. Which agent does what is industry stuff that I don't expect most people to know or care about. It's irrelevant to anyone who isn't actively trying to get scoops and information. But the part that you see on the bottom of your screen or the bottom of his tweet, David Mulugheta is one of like 3 to 5 agents I'd expect anyone with a semi-serious, what you can't see there, interest in the NFL to know. Again, if you're halfway interested in sports, you know Scott Boras, you know Todd France, you know David Mulugheta. You understand that these are the power players. These are the decision makers. These are the career changers relative to contracts in the NFL. This is somebody who has done deals with the Dallas Cowboys. He's a Texas guy. He's a Dallas guy. Like, we could go on and on and on as far as reasons why Jerry Jones absolutely knows David Mulugheta's name. To claim that he doesn't, honestly, is one of the more desperate cries for attention that I have seen from Jerry Jones in a very, very long time. It's honestly maybe more desperate than saying the Cowboys Cowboys were going to be all in a year ago, because we all knew that that was simply a cry for attention. That was simply a look at me, look at us, everybody pay attention to us because we're not in the Super Bowl this year once again. This is I really need you to make some headlines about me because it's been a minute. Steven and Schottenheimer have been doing all the talking and I am just getting restless. These idle hands, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. I don't know his name. What? This is like if the Titanic were to be like the iceberg. What's that? Never heard of it. You know what I mean? Like, we all know that Jerry Jones and any important NFL figure knows who David Mulligeta is. And so for Jerry Jones to act like this is really just immature and silly and wasting time. And I'll put this back up on your screen because we didn't even get to the Micah Parsons part of it. Oh, I see now why you didn't see this on your screen. But Micah had a tweet offering some thoughts, and good for Micah here. All right. Micah saying, actually, let me switch the screen that I'm showing you here. Let's put this up there. All right. This is Micah Parsons' full tweet, so you can see it. Here we go. Micah quoted a Clarence Hill tweet who said Jerry Jones with blatant, in fact, you can see the whole thing here. Go. Jerry Jones with blatant disrespect. This is Clarence's tweet to Micah Parsons' agent, David Mulligeta. The agent is not a concern here. I don't know his name. Mulligeta is one best and most respected agents in the NFL. Parsons is wise to have hired Mulligeta. That's what Clarence said. Clarence is completely right. Micah adds facts. David is the best, and I will not be doing any deal without, and then he tags him, David Mulligeta involved. Like anyone with good sense, I hired experts for a reason. There is no one, there is no one, Jerry Jones. I trust more. What a difficult sentence it must be for Jerry Jones to read this in terms of emotions involved. There is no one I trust more when it comes to negotiating contracts than David. I don't trust the owner, the one-on-one, the buddy stuff, the guy who's talking about the glory days of Emmett and Dion. There's no one I trust more than the dude whose name you claim you do not know. There will be, the final sentence of this tweet here, no back doors in this contract negotiation. I understand that Micah Parsons makes people feel different ways. I understand that some people question this, that, or whatever. For my money, I think Micah Parsons is an awesome leader. I think he's great. I think he's amazing. I think the Cowboys should absolutely give him anything and everything he wants. I think he's going to be a Hall of Famer. I can't say enough good things about Micah Parsons. Beyond all of that stuff, I also think he's a badass. I mean, I think it's hilarious for Micah to be like, oh, you think you can disrespect my guy, the guy who's negotiating a life-changing contract for me? Nah, that's my dude. Like, yeah, you're the owner and you're the general manager and we're bros and we're cool, but do not think that I hold a higher level of loyalty to you for some reason that you have conjured up in your mind. That's my guy. I ride with him. I stand with him. He works for me. I work for him. We're a symbiotic relationship. We are the team against you. That is very cool. And I said, to be clear, and you might remember this from the show I did when I was at Pebble Beach and the DeMarcus Lawrence comments were happening, I loved that Micah Parsons stood up for the Cowboys in that moment, right? When DeMarcus Lawrence said, oh, they're never going to win this Super Bowl, whatever, they're losers. That's me paraphrasing. Micah said, dude, get out of town. You're just salty. You're just sad. You're insecure, whatever. Micah will stand up for his people. That includes the Cowboys. That obviously includes Jerry Jones. We've seen Micah say, whether it was on his show or in tweets or in posts on social in general, hey, you're not understanding Jerry, etc. I was at Micah Parsons' live show. Shout out to my Bleacher Report family in New Orleans, all right? At the Super Bowl, on the way there, or in the lead up to it, when Jordan Love was there and Derrick Henry was there, and Micah, when talking to the crowd, he said, look, y'all don't get it. Y'all have one idea of Jerry Jones. Trust me, it's legit. It's all good. Trust me, we're going to work this out. He said that. He went out on a limb. He went out on an island because I know sitting in the crowd, I was rolling my eyes. I was saying, Micah, dude, you're just, infatuated with the moment. But he has his guys back, and that's Jerry Jones in that moment. That's David Mulligeta in this one. And let me be clear. I've already said this several times, but I don't for a single second believe that Jerry Jones does not know David Mulligeta's name. All right. But even if it wasn't one of the most, high profile power player level agents in the NFL, even if it was the bottom of the NFL agent totem pole, right? Like, even if it was just somebody who only represented one client, it doesn't change how dismissive and disrespectful this was, right? Like the fact that David Mulligeta is who he is, certainly exacerbates the point, right? We can it makes the whole situation worse from a PR standpoint, ironically enough. But whoever it was, let's call it John Doe. right? Let's say Micah's agent was John Doe and had nobody else, and this was a part-time job, right? Representing NFL agents, wasn't involved in the NFL, didn't have the influence and the decision-making power, and all these other clients, whatever. It was just some John Doe. Being dismissive of John Doe, being disrespectful to John Doe in this way benefits you in no single way. There is no good, right? Like sometimes somebody makes a bad decision in life, and you and I sit here and we say, well, I don't know, man, that was kind of silly. I don't think I would have done that. But if you and I had to defend that person in a court of law, we could say, well, maybe they were thinking this, right? Like maybe they thought that if it went that way, it would have worked out. And that way was really unlikely, but it did exist in the world of possibilities. It was still a silly decision when you did the math, but at the very least, there was a 1 in 14 million chance, like Doctor Strange in the Avengers and Endgame, where it could have worked out, right? There's no 1 in 14 million here. There's not a single way that this move, this tactic, whatever, this gamesmanship from Jerry Jones claiming he doesn't know David's name, there's not a single way that this works out well for the Cowboys. Well being defined as getting a better deal or getting a deal done sooner or getting a deal done on the terms or parameters that they want. All you have done is peed into the wind. All you have done is taunted the lion. All you have done is danced in front of the lion wearing a meat dress like Lady Gaga that one year. Was it at the VMAs? Whatever it was. Like, that's all you have done. All you have done is upset the people who you were trying to work directly with to get a massive contract done. In fact, earlier on Tuesday, before this little flex, Jerry Jones said that he had made an offer to Micah Parsons in terms of their chill vibe conversation to make him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. We don't know the exact specifics from a numerical standpoint that went into that deal. But what we do know is that Jerry Jones, on some level, in his own way, is willing to make Micah Parsons the highest paid player, highest paid non-quarterback, I should specify, in the history of the NFL. That's some big time money. So we are concluding that you are willing to make this man the high and therefore his representation the highest paid non-quarterback ever to play this game, and you are pissing them off. like you're already saying that you're ready to do that, and now you're like, oh, but I don't even know your name, man. Like, this is so silly. This again, and these are the things. Like this is why and I don't blame Brian Schottenheimer. I don't even blame Stephen Jones, right? Like, this is why all that goodwill, those good vibes, that good momentum that seemed to build up throughout the second half of January and after the Schotty press conference and at the NFL Combine when Jerry didn't speak on the bus and during Zach Martin's press conference, whenever they still said a few things. That was the only time Jerry ever spoke throughout the offseason before Tuesday, right? This is why when all that stuff happened, we all said, okay, all right, just waiting, 39 days since our last incident, right? This is why we were afraid to believe. And we still are afraid to believe. And this is why something awesome could happen tomorrow. The Micah deal could happen tomorrow, but we will still hold our breath. Or we won't hold our breath. What's the expression, right? We won't hold our breath because we know that you can't help yourself. In fact, I know I said I wouldn't blame Steven, but on Sunday, Steven said, his exact quote escapes me, the literal quote, but Steven was talking about the Micah deal, obviously the extension, and referenced, a lot of history and said, we put zero credence or credibility into people who say that we wait too long and we pay more and it hurts us as a result. That's a little bit of a paraphrasing of the quote. Steven himself, 4 years ago, when asked by NBC5's Pat Doney, said, yeah, my biggest regret is we probably should have paid Dak Prescott the first time. So, bro, you're disagreeing with yourself. Like, just stop talking. So much can be improved from the Dallas Cowboys if these two people stop talking. All right. Look, I've come around a lot on Brian Schottenheimer, like I said, to kind of reference the point that we started at the beginning here, right? But we all know how he felt at the beginning of his hiring, right? That being said, the person who I overwhelmingly trust the most in this brain trust right now is Brian Schottenheimer. I will follow Brian Schottenheimer 100 out of 100 times over Jerry and Steven at this point in time. This isn't like the, ism whenever you play a game, like when an underdog is up against a big time favorite and we're like, well, if we played them 99 or 100 times, they might win 99 and we might win that 100th. And this is that one time, Little Giants. There is no one time. There's not a single time out of 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000 or 1,000,000,000,000. There's not one time in any of those opportunities, in any of those timelines, in any of the hypothetical worlds that Doctor Strange can envision that I would choose to follow Jerry or Steven over even Brian Schottenheimer. All right, I'm with Shotty every single instance over them 100% of the time. If these two dudes can just chill out, I think we can make this work. All right. But for now, this was one of the sillier days and some silly headlines that came out as a result of it because they just couldn't help themselves. And sometimes that is ultimately the most Dallas Cowboys thing possible. All right. My name is RJ Ochoa. You can follow me on X, Instagram, Threads at RJ Ochoa, Blue Sky, search for RJ Ochoa, TikTok, RJ.Ochoa, RJ.Ochoa at SBNation.com is also how you send me an email. You can follow me right here in the Bleacher Report app if you're watching live or on demand here. Make sure you like the video and subscribe on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. Go back and watch the episode of the NFC's mixtape that Brandon Gouton and I did. Come back on Wednesday when I talk to Tracy Wolfson. It's a fantastic conversation. She talks about the sun in AT&T Stadium. So you know that is always interesting. And like I said, we got a lot of fun things brewing over the course of the next couple of weeks. Our good friend DeMarcus Ware, who I've been able to interview, I don't even know how many times at this point in time, is going to stop by before the NFL draft ultimately gets here. So the football, it may not be technically happening, but it is always happening in here. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope you have a wonderful next day. I hope you have a wonderful week and month and year and lifetime because you deserve it. Thanks so much for hanging out, everybody, and we will see you next time.